Hello everybody, it's Max with Crypto Talk Now. When it comes to Quant, there's multiple reasons why I feel bullish on just that, Quant. But if you're new to the likes of Quant, you may very well need to have an understanding of what Quant is all about, and if anything, why people keep mentioning these types of things on why they're bullish. Without further ado, let's go ahead and get into today's Quant coverage. And I'm going to give a new person a shout out, and I'm going to full screen this. So it's this particular person right here by the name of Zero IKA, and he can be followed at I am Zero IKA. This particular person is an educational thread writer with mindset. And basically, he's a crypto analyst basically since 2017. And like it says, he tweets, or his tweets basically are personal opinions. Now, here's the thing. This particular person caught my eye because he did a very, very good job of outlining multiple reasons for why he's bullish, but to, back it up with some actual useful information, right? Not just to the moon, as the saying goes. So I'm going to get more into this. I like what he mentions specifically here. So a lot of what you're going to see is going to be mentioned verbatim. Main reason for that is because this guy does a really, really good job of just giving you a full outline. So we're going to get into it right now. So it says the vast majority of projects aren't prepared to communicate with each other. Fortunately, there's a project that is moving in this way, hence Quant, right? So it says, here's why Quant might become one of the best risk to reward ratio investment opportunities that you can catch in the current bear market, which we're still in. Now, it mentions, for instance, some of these specifics like I mentioned to you before. I want to jump right to this particular point. And if anything, maybe I could blow this up just a little bit more before you guys can see it just a little bit better. Hold on. Yep, we'll go ahead and do that. Why I do these types of things, because you know what, it just makes it easier for us to all see. So it says, as we saw, the land of cryptocurrencies is dominated by a huge number of projects that work separately. How true is that? They try to compete with each other, becoming the lion that eats the gazelle. That's a good analogy. It says, while competition goes technology improvements, it also fortifies tribalism. I'm not really a big fan of tribalism. Of course, he states that, there's good and bad in it in regards to the crypto space. I guess you could say we can agree to disagree on that. But nonetheless, he mentions specifically tribalism is at the same time both good and bad for the crypto space, as it stimulates technology but lowers the adoption speed rate. Okay, I'll agree with that particular part. And here's the first reason to be bullish on Quant. It creates connections between different sectors. Now, as we go further down, for instance, we know some of these things. Now, if you're new to this, you don't. So I want to point this out for some of the new people who might have never tuned into Quant. You keep hearing about Quant, right? Why are other people so bullish? What is this thing all about? I heard it's not I heard it's not a blockchain, it's an operating system. So for one, Overledger, like it mentions, is not a blockchain, but a DLT gateway that works as a platform. Overledger itself is just that. It's an operating system, all right? It's an operating system to make blockchains interoperable among many other use cases. Now it mentions enterprises, institutions, legacy systems, blockchains, and so on to connect themselves through Overledger API compatible with multiple chains such as BNB, Bitcoin, Ethereum, and so on. Now, of course, you want to see more in regards to that particular thread. We could definitely recommend it for you. All right, I recommend it for you. It just is going to take a whole other deep dive into a whole other subject, and of course, that would definitely make this video like maybe an hour to 2 hours long. And we're not trying to get into those specifics right now. Now we have covered those things. in the recorded video section here at Crypto Talk Now. Highly recommend that you take a look at some of the other videos. Now, when we get into some of these specifics, excuse me, and if you're new here, when you hear that little noise, basically because I don't want to cough into the mic. All right, so it mentions about the ecosystem, like ecosystem apart, which is big. Institutions, banks, blockchains, or I should say blockchain inclusions, etc. The key is to make sure that all of these parties can communicate with each other in an easy way. That's what really, really stands out for Quant, right? So it says the future belongs to a simple switch from chain to chain, whatever it is. On top of that, despite hated discourses, you're covering facts and not moral talks. The developments for CBDCs, which if you're completely new to this, central bank digital currencies, are growing a lot, with Turkey launching the first test. Many more countries will surely follow, especially Western ones that will have a louder echo. I do apologize, I'm having problems right now with my allergies and congestion because of the weather change. But yes, we get further into it. Of course, you see this particular article. CBDCs have been gaining global traction, as we know, among nations. CBDCs are nothing but central bank digital currencies that are pegged to the currency of the nation, for instance. And for instance, after you see this particular video, especially if you're new, we do cover the Quant connection to just that. CBDCs for both, for instance, the UK, especially here in the United States coming up. And again, that particular supply and demand for just that, CBDCs. What is the Quant connection? Well, I highly advise you take a look into some of the deep dives that we have done. Now, it states, the Quant Overledger, again, that operating system, with its multiple solutions, is the perfect recipe to embrace and ease the process of CBDCs onboarding. But this is just the tip of the iceberg for Quant. There is much more behind it. How do we know that? Well, for instance, you have MDApps, right? When you see that particular terminology of MDApps, literally the interpretation is Web3 infrastructure. That QRC 20, QRC 721. Again, if you're new to all this, don't worry about some of this terminology yet. We do cover this, though, in other recordings/videos. Tokenization, NFTs, enterprises, plus banks being onboarded, stablecoin minting, supply chain management, payments, so on and so forth, right? Now, in regards to fundamentals of Sun, it says the fundamentals will keep improving and exploring new ways of business integrations. This is where I get, for instance, excited, because when you have new ways for business to integrate what they offer and so on, whether it's into blockchain technology and other different use cases, that's where the utility of Quant kicks in, because they solve things at scale that nobody else is really doing, right? Some might do a little bit, but not to the scale of Quant. So let's move to more technical aspects, like he mentions, and why these will have an impact on the Quant price. Basically, that's why we're all here for the most part, not necessary for all this technical stuff. So, excuse me, I apologize. It says, we saw that Quant has a fixed supply of 14.6 million with zero future emissions. Again, why Quant is so appealing is that low fixed supply, basically the circulating supply, right? It's even that much more attractive compared to the likes of Bitcoin, which is 20, 21 million and so on. So that means more scarcity, right? And then when I got asked this question a while ago, or actually just a few days ago on the live show, Max, which particular of the ISOs or in crypto in general do you feel as though we need to stack the most? Is number one Quant for you? And then I said, well, XRP is literally tied. And I thought to myself, no, Quant takes the cake, because every single day that passes, think about it, Quant creates that much more scarcity due to its circulating supply. Therefore, Quant gets that number one position for me for those particular reasons, amongst other reasons, right? Ton of other reasons. All right. So it says this is preparatory to the price appreciation as the product is strictly correlated to the token. The ecosystem, for instance, of Quant puts Quant at the core, creating a mechanism as simple as effective. Just like I mentioned countless times, supply and demand. Now, how does that put effect on the price? Well, generally, a low supply and a high demand increases price, whereas the greater the supply and the lower the demand, the price tends to fall. Now, I've stated this also on the live show. I might have worded it different from what you see here. But my thing is this. When your particular digital asset, as in crypto, right? When your particular crypto reaches these three categories, not just the supply and demand, but it's kind of like a slogan I have now. I refer to as the crypto trifecta. And that is, does your particular crypto project, or in this case of, Quant product, does it have supply? Okay, yes. Does it have the demand? Yes, awesome. How about this? Does it trend? Notice that Quant is really, really starting to trend right now. Not just with the retail sector, like you and I trying to get into it and invest, but also when it comes to the large financial institutions, the big institutional money out there. You better believe that is how we get insane market caps. A lot of times when it comes to people who criticize Quant, they will mention just that. Well, we never had these types of market caps before with anything else. This is never going to happen. They're just basically Bitcoin maxis and so on. And I know I sound like I'm anti-Bitcoin maxis. Not that I'm anti-anything, really. But, there's always that whole thing, especially if you're new here. And that is when it comes to Bitcoin maxis, they attack Quant. People that hold Quant. Bitcoin is the ultimate store of value, and everything else is just going to get regulated to hell and back. Well, that's the whole thing. It's just this is trending something fierce, especially when it comes to those particular sectors that we mentioned. So that's, in my opinion, the magic formula for what I refer to as a crypto trifecta. Take it as you will. So number 10, in fact, users need to purchase the token to have access to the overledger. Absolutely true. The natural consequence is that more users will flow into the platform, which basically is going to mean more demand for Quant. This blockchain agnostic token, Quant basically, or QNT, is a blockchain agnostic token that can basically work on any blockchain, right? The full interoperability. And how is that so? Well, when you hear these particular terms, it's because Overledger in itself is an operating system, and therefore, unlike other blockchains out there who claim that they're interoperable, in order for them to be interoperable, it would require another layer of blockchain to just do that. With Quant's Overledger, it takes that out of the equation. And oh, by the way, in order to be interoperable, right, it only takes them roughly 3 lines of code to make it happen. So developers looking out from the outside coming in, that's very, very appealing for them to want to jump on board and develop on what? On Quant. Think about that. That in itself, that's a whole other layer of what? Utility. Because now it's not just, financial sectors, solving things for this particular business and so on. No, you're having devs wanting to come on board. This is why I refer to Quant as the ecosystem of ecosystems. We talk about Quant being the network of networks, also the ecosystem of ecosystems. So some people say, well, Max is the same thing. Well, is it? Sort of not, right? So it says if users pay for the membership using Quant or QNT, right? The result will be a cheaper service. Gilbert Verdian has outlined this quite a few times. I highly recommend you guys checking out some of the other videos. here's the thing: if you're completely even new to like YouTube videos, as far as, well, I should say YouTube videos, but like crypto related videos and so on. I understand, like you scroll through your phone, you get those particular, thumbnails that come up, and then you just kind of watch what's in front of you. But for those people who appreciate this content and so on, I highly recommend after that you've, hit that like, subscribe, bell notification and so on. More to it than just that. You literally want to go to the video section. That way you can see a complete outline of everything we cover, and we're very, very active here at Crypto Talk Now when it comes to providing you guys recorded content, live shows daily, you name it. Now, like we mentioned, all transactions that flow through the overlay ledger is paid in what? QNT. Gateway staking will create more demand. And on top of that, it says the QNT purchased from developers will be locked up for the license period, which is 12 months long, contributing to temporarily reducing the supply. QNT will be used as a way to sign, secure, and move enterprises' digital assets. On top of that, all of these are technical aspects that together with the increase of holders and a new bull run contribute to creating positive buying pressure. And you want to see your asset have just that, positive buying pressure. Why? Think about this visualization, to put it in layman's terms. It's like a pressure cooker effect. Now, I am going to use an example, and it is not related to Quant, but it is in relation to supply and demand and what's trending, and then how we get like things to take off, like go parabolic, if you will. But for instance, 2021, Shiba Inu, right? I bought over 1 billion of those tokens, for instance, turned 8K into 88K. A lot of you guys know the story. But the key thing is basically how, for instance, you had roughly 6 months straight, well, at least I did at least, from May of 2021 to roughly October of 2021, where everybody was complaining about, for instance, consolidation, what they refer to as trading sideways. That's actually a good thing, because you will see, for instance, in the case of SHIB, I know this is starting to turn into a SHIB video, trust me, it's not. You will see, for instance, where there's a lot of volume coming, but you're like, oh man, I don't know about this. The price is just sideways. Don't necessarily look at that as a bad thing, all right? And if you see that with Quant, just know it could actually be a good thing. So what I want to point out here is this particular chart. It says the chart below shows the upward trend regarding number of holders, flashing confidence and interest from investors. Now it states basically, some of these particular numbers you see here, Quant weekly holders, which is, oh man, it's quite a bit, as you can see. But you can see the progression of where it's gone. It's very, very impressive. Now, some of these particular points. I don't know if I'll, blow up this completely, maybe a little bit. It says, also, very interesting to see that more than 500,000 QNT were exchanged and moved to cold storage in the last 4 months. Why? People know that with all the crap that's happened when it comes to, let's face it, even before the whole thing with FTX, they also recognize there was a lot of horrible things that happened with what? Terra Luna, the fall of UST, the depegging of UST. For instance, Celsius, that whole thing. VGX, yeah, I made money off a distressed asset of VGX, but I would never root for those types of things to happen. But the point is, you have intelligent investors, and especially whales, who have come into Quant. Let me blow this up if I can. Yep, I can. Who have recognized that this is something that they need to get off exchanges. Of course, they put into cold storage and so on. I know this is probably on your end is going to be a little bit hard to see, but you can definitely see, for instance, QNT on all exchanges, where the correlation of where it's changed, the max supply. And here are some particular, exchanges. The dates, Coinbase, Binance, KuCoin, some of the big players, right? Let me shrink that down. And on top of that, we're going to jump into this part. And that is, some of the significance, right? This is, again, I guess you could say a presentation slash an outline to give you a better idea. And when I saw this with him, Zero IKA, excuse me, I said to myself, this deserves a proper video. Yes, I realize a lot of it's verbatim. I try my best not to do everything verbatim. Sometimes it needs to be said. So this point that is mentioned on point 15 says, let's now see some price action and how QNT has performed. It was no secret that it came out as one of the strongest assets and performance from the 2018 bear market. Keep in mind, we are still technically in a bear market. Don't be shocked if you're still going to see a few more like relief rallies, if you will. But that's just how it is. I personally feel as though, for the record, I've stated this before, that we are basically going to go on a utility run somewhere around the beginning of Q2 of this year, 2013. I think that's when you start first seeing these indicators. Utility run. We never had a true utility run in crypto ever. We are definitely due. Now, that's not me just saying, throwing a bunch of hope out there, false promises, and so on. I also am not a fortune teller. I want to state that for the record, right? None of this is financial advice. But I base it off of data, I base it off of analytics, and I base it off of these 4-year cycles when it comes to crypto, and especially when it comes to Bitcoin. Because even though we might make this, state these things like, oh, Quant and, like some of the tribalism. I'm not a fan of tribalism, but, for instance, Bitcoin maxis, you got to look at, what they're looking into and so on, some of these graphs and so on. Well, it's not about that. It's also about recognizing that Bitcoin and Ethereum represent 81% of the overall crypto market, right? So you do have to kind of follow some of the 4-year cycles and so on, right? And at the same time, in 2022, a lot of times when Bitcoin and Ethereum were down, QNT outperformed everything in a bear market. So a lot of times it does go against those particular ones. That is a good thing. So again, let's see how some price action basically helped Quant in regards to his performance. And then on the specifics, like it shows, it's no secret that it came out as one of the strongest assets and performance from a 2018 bear market, which it did, with a phenomenal rise from 20 cents. Yeah, you can imagine that. Imagine getting a Quant at 20 cents. We're still even early at the prices that we are, right? But those guys, man, they really recognize us. So phenomenal rise from 20 cents to its all-time high of $430. That was basically, I think, somewhere around September of 2021. Don't quote me on that, but I'm pretty sure, last I checked, it was in that area. Now, you may feel as though, especially if you're new to this, that, that's never going to happen again, and, you guys, it's just, you don't know what you're talking about. Guess what? Yes. We're going to exceed those all-time highs, something fierce. And of course, we're going to get into that towards the end. I'm going to show you guys where we're going with some of these particular prices. And of course, if you've watched some of our other videos, you've known that I've mentioned crazy things. I don't think it's too crazy. I'm just looking at it from the perspective of these guys are the true innovators. These guys are literally, you're watching the evolution of Web3 right before your eyes. That's why I come up with these. Not just saying, hey, it's going to go to this out of thin air. Some people have accused me of that, but I actually do try to back it up with actual data to support some of that. Anyway, so it states at the current prices, right, roughly in that $105 range, and let's face it, guys, by the time you get this video, after it's processed and uploaded to YouTube and so on, and other outlets, the price could fluctuate. But it states it's still up 50%, I should say. 50.100%. Huh. I don't know if that's a typo. Anyways, it says from the 2018 low and up 64% in the last year against Bitcoin, which is a strong sign of strength. Yes, it is a strong sign of strength. And why do we always make those comparisons to Bitcoin? Well, if anything, the reason why we make those comparisons to Bitcoin is because Quant has a lot of things that are similar to Bitcoin, right? Scarcity, a low circulating supply, not that big of a max supply, right? But if anything, it's like our second chance at Bitcoin back in at least 2013, right? Roughly in that $100 range, but with real world utility, I should say, right? Making things interoperable, 100 plus blockchains interoperable. Think about that for a moment, right? How do you put value on it? Like I've mentioned before. So it says, even if you had held QNT for the entire bear market drawdown, you would be considerably up 160% from a low. That is absolutely true. People, for instance, on our show, long before you guys might have even knew about Crypto Talk now, we introduced this, all right? And again, shout out to Mike Cornwell. And if you're gonna pinpoint it down, he was a member of our community. I should say he still is. And he pointed out Quant roughly around the $40-$45 range. A lot of our members got in, or community members, I should say, got in at those particular price levels. Shout out to you, Lin Wai, if you happen to be listening as we speak. Those guys did really, really well, and they recognize what they have. They could have chose, you know what, I'm going to sell it all, take all my profits, and so on. Some did take some profits off the top, but a lot of guys also recognize, wow, if it went from $45 to some of these prices now, you imagine when we get into a real bull market, right? Well, in my opinion, it starts with a utility run first, and then if anything, it's going to trigger the real bull run. It just simply makes sense. Now, this is really something else. I mean, Zero IKA, like I mentioned, is on his profile, educational thread writer. This is really, it's a very good, or I should say great educational thread. I did give him a follow, and I highly recommend you guys give him a follow as well. But anyway, we're getting into some of the real juicy stuff here. So it states, after the long move, when it strongly ran from $40 to $210 at the end of October, Quant sloped down to the 9-EMA, resulting in a loss of the uptrend, where $100 has acted as a nice support. My thing is this. When it comes to Quant, hold on just a moment. When it comes to Quant, when I hear people say, well, why would you want to get in that? It's going to crash down. It's going to crash back down to 50. It's going to crash back down to 40. My attitude is, you know what? I'm cool with that. I am absolutely cool with that, because that basically means that I can get darn near 3 of these for the price I paid. Well, I think the highest I ever paid was 120. Maybe paid a little bit higher than that. But you get what I'm saying? Like, I was willing to pay even up to 200, to be honest. And let's face it, in the future, I may very well be paying over 200, or I might even get priced out of Quant, which, let's face it, a lot of us are going to. But again, my point is, this could crash down to the $40, $50 level, and yeah, this is the overused saying goes, back the truck up, because you want to load up on Quant. Not financial advice. That's what I personally would basically do. So it said, for instance, that this area of 100 had acted as a nice support. You see some of this, especially if you're into some of the technical analysis and so on. But let's jump into some of these other key points. So it says, if we zoom out, opening the weekly chart, we can see a potential, for instance, head and shoulders formation when they say HNS. Another thing that's people look at, for instance, is the cup and handle. All these particular, technical analysis and so on. And by the way, I want to say it for the record, for those who do follow us all the time, especially our Quant coverage and so on. I don't mean this in a bad way. Do not ask me for in-depth technical analysis and so on. There's some great content creators who do specifically that. That is not my expertise. I know basic technical analysis and so on. I will use some of what you see right here as part of reference, but as far as on a live show or focus recording or people requesting me to do the technical analysis, that is something I just will not BS people about and act like I know how to do it and so on, because I don't. Again, it's just some of the basic stuff like you see right here. But anyway, it says, if the pattern completes, we should see another spike to close the right shoulder, and then a decline towards the 50 range level. So when people kind of like put this into perspective, I mean, that part is kind of easy to follow, right? He highlights it for you and so on. Now he states, this of course, doesn't mean it will surely happen, but if it does, it will represent a golden opportunity to load up heavily. Yes, load up heavily. Now, why is that? Why would you want to load up heavily on anything that took a different direction? That's a great question. It says, and that's where I will put a big amount of my capital. Now, why is that specifically? Well, like he mentions right here, otherwise I will continue to monitor the PA and increase my stack over time. Well, my thing is this. It could go further down, but if anything, a lot of times when you see these particular ones, you will see, for instance, where it will go down for kind of like a relief, or what's referred to as a relief rally. I'm not talking about the overall market and so on, but if anything, then you have what is referred to as a pullback, right? And then you have what is also referred to as blast off, right? Real simple terms. Now it says, this of course doesn't mean it will surely happen, but if it does, it will represent golden opportunity, like you mentioned, to load up heavily, and he's got to put a lot of capital in that. Now it says, it's time for the conclusions. I know that most people don't like QNT for two main reasons. I mean, let's face it, he does point out some of the negative aspects. Not everything in the world is perfect, right? The CBDC relationship. Some people feel as though that, this is the devil's money. They don't want to get into that. I will state this, right? I consider myself a Christian. At least I try to be, right? I'm a sinner just like a lot of other people, right? But my thing is, I feel as though that CBDCs are going to come whether we like it or not. And if anything, I don't want to be on the sidelines where I could say, you know what, I didn't recognize the projects that are out there that basically provided utility while these CBDCs were being made or utilized, right? I don't want to be on the sidelines. I've been on the sidelines for much of my life. I'm a school teacher, and basically when it comes to that, let's face it, I live in Arizona. We rank, last I checked, 49th out of 50 on lowest teacher wages. My thing is, crypto is my meal ticket, right? For me personally, it's not financial advice. It's my meal ticket. I got bit by what I refer to as the crypto bug in 2021. First started off, believe it or not, with Dogecoin, all right? Yeah, that doesn't have any utility, but again, it's part of that crypto journey. Started off with Dogecoin, $300 investment became $22K. Why? Because I came in at a penny. My friend told me about it. He says, telling you flat out, Max, you got to get in because the price is going to increase literally tomorrow. And he was right. It basically did. At the time, all that I could afford was like, $300 and so on. But my point was, I saw it, blast off, and I was just like, wow, this whole crypto thing is really something else. I already knew it was something else years before that, but I didn't realize some of the use cases, or for instance, somehow things trend when it comes to the whole thing of, communities or memes and so on. And I get it, those are memes, but my point is, from there, I went into Shiba Inu because it was well under a penny. And I said to myself, wow, I want to find out more about this. And I got, let's face it, I got lucky on a lot of that stuff. Shiba Inu, again, like I mentioned, 8K and 88K. But my thing is this, I got bit by the crypto bug, all right? And long story short, for 2021, 10K into 120K. And that's nothing to bat an eye at. And while I state that, it didn't make me rich and so on, I am now looking to not just make that type of money, but looking to make, for instance, that generational wealth. That's where I started investigating and taking deep dives into the likes of, some of these ISOs, Quant, XRP, XLM, XDC, LCX, ALBT, some of these other ones we cover. A lot of everything we mentioned, for the most part, we are personally invested into this, okay? So, yeah, I definitely research and I share these things to you guys because I feel as though it's very important to do so. This is part of educating people, and it's part of how we achieve mass adoption because, yeah, we represent, I guess you could say, a small minority of the people from the retail sector and so on, right? But it's also getting on board with understanding what institutional money is doing. So anyway, yeah, that CBDC relationship and so on. Yes, people, let's face it, they're not the biggest fans of it. But that Quant connection, we already established the whole thing with the UK. How we know that? Again, check out some of our other videos. We go over that into full detail. I don't want to put more and more emphasis on it because I already put a lot of emphasis on it just now. It says already a 30 in a market cap, right? Some people don't want to get into big market cap coins because they feel as though that the risk to reward ratio is not going to be significant compared to like a micro cap gem or a small cap gem, right? Well, let me tell you flat out, Quant, we're still very, very early. It really has that connection or correlation, I guess you could say, when it comes to getting into Bitcoin back in 2013 at the $100 level. Why? Because in my humble opinion, this is going to become a $100,000 coin within the next couple years, maybe a little bit longer. I could be wrong on that. If anything, I'm not the only one who feels that way. And I'm not the only one who feels as though that Quant will be the first $1 million coin. I know that sounds crazy. You may think, man, you're full of malarkey. But guess what? Quant could very well become the first $1 million coin by like 2030. All right, think about this. Larry, who is the host of Crypto Talk now, my partner, he put out a short 2 days ago, basically mentioning, it's like a 15-second short, that if you put in, for instance, $1,000 into Bitcoin 10 years ago, it'd be worth $1.2 million. Now, of course, it was significantly higher than that if you would have cashed at all-time highs on 11/11/2001. Why? Or 2021. Why? Because Bitcoin, for instance, went up to 69K. All right, let's get back on specifically Quant and so on. Because I do realize that, this is sometimes these deep dives can get just that even more deeper and so on. But a lot of times I do try to make a valid point for you guys and so on, but at the same time I don't want to get too off track. So it states, for instance, number 21, you must be objective and cold as ice. Very, very true. If QNT has decided to support governments and help CBDC spreading, I will not lose the opportunity of profiting from it. I want to state this for the record. Gilbert Verdian has basically understood and mentioned, some of these things specifically when it comes to CBDCs. He understands that, people see Mr. Klaus Schwab of the World Economic Forum and basically, don't like the idea of it. They don't like the idea that, as the saying goes, you will own nothing and you will be happy. They don't like that. I wouldn't like that. Nobody likes that, right? But he has stated for the record that when it comes to CBDCs, it's not that it's going to replace the monetary system. It's going to complement. Now, that sounds good. I don't know if I completely agree with all of that. I guess you could say on the short term, that would be true. It's going to complement it, right? But on the long term, yeah, I hate to say this, but it is going to replace the monetary system, okay? And of course, we take a deep dive into history of, where money was back in the 1800s and where we're at now and how it goes, technically speaking. We go through different shifts when it comes to, physical gold and silver coins and stuff like that. And then we went to actual cash money. But that's another historical deep dive. We're not doing that. So it says, for instance, I am an investor, not a judge. There are other ways if you want to boycott them. True. Now, it says, regarding the higher market cap position, this part is good stuff. You need to hear this. So it says, yes, it's no secret that it has skyrocketed, and realistically, you'll probably never catch another 50,000% from Quant. That's insane. So it says, people are so obsessed from higher percentages that they forget about what? That risk to reward ratio rule. And I couldn't agree more. Because we're talking about a project that has, well, let's face it, it's more than just a project. It's a product at this point, right? But we're talking about a product that has incredibly solid fundamentals, top-notch tokenomics, true, an expert team, Yeah, over 20 plus, go reverting, over 20 plus years of working in multiple sectors. We've gone into full detail about his background and so on. And it's not just him. Martin Hargreaves, you name it. Survived the 2018 bear market. They did. And if anything, they were one of the top performers, right, in regards to top 50 cryptos based off of market cap on CMC, right? It's well positioned for expanding the business. It's a way different, basically, than chasing a liquid and uncertain project. Basically, let's face it, the garbage meme coins that are out there. Now, it says, we can figure out some numbers. A $40 dip would mean a 10x to reach its previous high. A $100 accumulation will result in a 4x to the all-time high. Would you spit on these multipliers? No. Who the heck would? Yeah, like he says, personally, no. Talking about risk-to-reward ratio. Now, there's a lot to this, I understand, but we're almost about to wrap this up. I do thank a lot of you guys who do watch from beginning end, because I think, if anything, you appreciate some of the deep dives that we do. At least that's the feedback that we get. Just, of course, some people are always going to be critical, and if anything, we do take constructive criticism. Now, it states, anyway, I believe that Quant, with such strong tokenomics, and they do, and fundamentals, that it will be improved over time, will have a great chance to break its previous all-time high. I feel the same way. To conclude, as investors, we need to split our capital into different positions in order to profit better. As a high cap, QNT represents one of the most interesting investment opportunities for the reasons we previously mentioned. If you're looking to add this type of investment again to your portfolio, this should be under your radar. Again, not official financial advice, but that's how it is. On top of that, it says, to close the thread, I leave you here below my QNT project explanation if you need a better outlook on how it works, tokenomics, and so on. Again, that's involves you basically following him on Twitter, and I would highly recommend it if you appreciate these types of really big, in-depth outlines. And again, guys, follow him at IAM0IKA. I think I did a really, really good job with that. Before we wrap it up, I want to show you guys this, okay? So, this is not me, by the way. This, I'm Maximus as well. This is a different Maximus. Shout out to this particular Maximus. It says, many industries will benefit tremendously from a blockchain. QNT will connect them all, right? You're looking at roughly 100 plus blockchains. I know it says 101 blockchains, but yeah, it just means that 100 plus blockchains. And like he mentions, QNT will connect them all. And of course, I could blow this up a little bit more to show you some emphasis, but I'm not going to read all of them, but there's a few key ones I want to point out. So, for instance, when it comes to applications of distributed ledger technology, DLT, you have countless different ones here, from the healthcare industry, legal contracts, entertainment. We talk about metaverse, all those types of things and so on. Supply chain, come on, think about the breakdown of our supply chain and so on. But one of the things I want to point out, for instance, is this can track and monitor luxury goods, ensures logistics-based processes and so on. Think about what VET was trying to accomplish, and think about, for instance, what Quant basically does at scale. So if VET wanted to approach Quant and say, hey, you know what, we would like to be interoperable with you, what kind of hoops do we have to jump through? Do we have to make another blockchain to make that happen? No, it doesn't work that way. Gilbert Verdian would basically say, you know what, no problem. All you need to do basically is, if anything, we will work with you. In fact, we'll even save you monthly expenses. And on top of that, through our overledger, we'll just write 3 lines of code, or maybe a little bit more, maybe even less, to make you guys fully interoperable. That's what I'm talking about when it comes to this whole concept of being bullish on QNT, is because that's where the utility kicks in. Now, speaking of utility, and I know this has been a really, really long deep dive, but what I want to point out real quick here, and I'm going to finally come back into frame for just a brief moment, and that is this. I share this on the live show, okay? But if anything, I'm also going to share this on the recorded. It is a particular interview that you have an example from Mark Cuban, the owner of the Dallas Mavericks. He gives an example about why Ethereum, blasted off and so on, why you saw it huge upside potential, or not upside potential, like literally just blasted off big time along with Bitcoin in late 2021. Why was that? We're going to jump into that right here now and within the next few seconds. But if anything, what I want to point out is you can draw a connection to his particular example. It's utility. So let's go ahead and jump into that right now.
Ethereum is driven by utility, right? A reason to use it. Bitcoin maxis will tell you that there's the Lightning Network, and you can do transfers, money transfers around the world, and that's true, right? But there's a site called cryptofees.info, right? And that tells you how much in transaction fees the network is actually generated, so you know how busy it is and how whether people are paying gas fees for transaction. And you can see on Bitcoin, it's been going down, not up.
Yeah.
And on Ethereum, it's the same way, but there's millions of dollars worth of transactions that take place there. The issue is what drove the price of Ethereum up is people needed to buy for gas fees for NFTs.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And when everybody was just game over NFTs and everybody was going nuts over, people were minting them, that used gas fees. People were buying them, that used gas fees. People were trading them, that used gas fees. And so that utility is what helped push Ethereum up.
Right.
Once, the number of NFT transactions started to fall, then there weren't any natural buyers. And then it was the same, play to earn, is not going to work the way it's structured right now. So you need something that's going to be an application. It's like if you think about the early days of the iPhone and mobile computing, and we really didn't know anything about apps. Right. And it was just like, okay, what apps am I possibly going to use? Then all of a sudden, Instagram's there.
Social media. Man.
Yeah. Social media. Bam. Right. And now all of a sudden, okay, everybody's going to download Instagram. Every kid's going to download Snapchat. Every kid's going to download TikTok now. Right.
Yeah.
Every kid's going to download even the YouTube app. Right. And so that is utility. That forces people to use your iPhone, use the App Store, whatever.
It's a great way of looking at it.
Yeah. With Ethereum, it's the same type of thing. There's no app where you say, okay, we all got to use it.
Yeah.
That's what it needs. And it's not going to be like, okay, here's Instagram for Ethereum or here's
Well, how do you
Snapchat.
think that happens then?
Somebody just has a smart idea.
All right. I'm really glad you guys got to see that particular highlight, again, from Mark Cuban. If anything, I thought he did a very good job of explaining that. And that's what excites me for Quant. Now, yeah, he used the particular example for Ethereum, but if anything, you have to understand that it's not just, for instance, only Ethereum going to do well and so on. Ethereum might not very well do well, right? You, for instance, know about the problem they have with gas fees. But whether you're a fan of gas fees, which basically nobody is, that's not the point. The point is recognizing that technically forced people to use their utility for what? In order for they can purchase NFTs. Again, the gas, you got to pay for, those particular NFTs. You have to use their utility. And it's an expensive utility, to say the least. Technically, it's a way of monopolizing the market. And hence why also Solana back in 2021 did so well. Now, when it comes to Quant, if Quant is solving things at scale that nobody else is doing, making everything interoperable, connecting 100+ blockchains, and not even scratching the surface, if you will, when it comes to everything they're doing for Web3, and God, payment APIs. I mean, you saw the graphs. I mean, not the graphs, the diagrams, and so on. It's unbelievable. So how do you put a real price on that? And if anything, how do we recognize what's going to happen in a utility run? Well, that's where I'll leave you with this. And I'll state this for the record. I'm going to show you this next thing here, which is going to be very encouraging, to say the least, when it comes to Quant. So I'm going to blow this up before we close out, and you can draw your own conclusion in that regard. All right, so let me pull this up, and it's right here. And shout out to this particular person. He is, big fan of Quant, Hopium Profit. And basically it states Q&T price on this day, January 4, 2023. stay, roughly the $111 range, 105 to 111. It kind of fluctuates. But let's face it, on top of that, it states 1 year ago, Quant was at $180. 2 years ago, it was at $11. 3 years ago, $3.53. 4 years ago, $2.57. Now, with a utility run that would trigger a bull run, and kind of have an idea that we could very well see some amazing things here soon, 2023 going into 2024. This really, really excites me, to say the least. And on top of that, in closing, shout out to Greg Lunt, another great content creator that covers Quant, quite frankly. He states, 0.001% of the world's population holds a token that might propagate, listen to this, 100% of the world's assets. How do you put a proper price on that? Again, that utility. Think about, for instance, what Mark Cuban mentioned, and draw your own conclusion on some of these bullish indicators, or bullish thesis, if you will, when it comes to Quant. All right, guys. Thanks again for watching. I know that was a real long deep dive, but if anything, it gives you a better perspective on what UNT Quant can accomplish. So, like, comment, subscribe if you haven't done so already. Please, by all means, hit that bell notification. And if you join a live show, check us out every single day at 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific. And y'all have a blessed day, everybody. We will see you on the next one.